Hey everybody, JoPro here, and today I've got a list of my favorite game for every video game console and handheld that I've owned. So sit back, relax, get angry at my opinions, and let me know in the comments what your favorite games are. And don't forget to check back July 21st for my final new JoPro video ever. Let's start off with the handhelds. I owned a PSP for about a minute, but never really played it. So that leaves the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, and 3DS. Although I've never been a huge handheld player, I do have some favorite games on those systems. For virtual console games I played on modern systems, I'm going to count those toward the original console. For example, if Super Mario Land was one of my winning games, that would still count as a Game Boy game, although I've only ever played it on the 3DS Virtual Console, never actually played it on Game Boy. Ports, remasters, remakes, those will all be the same way. They'll count towards the original game system. So with that said though, let's go ahead and get started with this impromptu bonus video, I should say. Alright, so getting started with the Game Boy. I have to go with Link's Awakening here. I don't care if you choose Link's Awakening or Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color. I first played this on the 3DS Virtual Console. I'm very excited for the remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, coming out this year for the Nintendo Switch. Looks pretty good. So Link's Awakening, definitely my favorite Game Boy game. I like the Mario games somewhat, but you know, the Game Boy's not a great console, and you'll notice there's no Pokemon on any of my list because I've never really played much Pokemon, so Zelda kind of wins out on the Game Boy. For Game Boy Advance, we got Metroid Fusion. One of my favorite Metroid games, probably my favorite Metroid game outside of the Prime trilogy. So I really like Metroid Fusion. I think it plays pretty well as a GBA game. Also first played that on the 3DS, not on the GBA. I never owned a GBA, but I actually found one time on the street, just laying in the road. And so that's actually the only GBA I have, but I've never really played it. I've only really played GBA games on the, more modern. I can't talk, guys. It's not like I've been doing this for 2 years or anything. I've only played GBA games on like modern stuff. So Zelda Minish Cap's pretty good. Never actually finished it. Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, also a great game. But I like Fusion a little bit more. For the Nintendo DS, the main handheld I played growing up, I gotta give it to The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks here. I really do like the handheld Zelda games. This one wins out for the DS games. I love Mario Kart DS. I like Phantom Hourglass, but I like Spirit Tracks a little bit more, and I'm also a big fan of Bowser's Inside Story, which I think is hands down the best Mario & Luigi game ever made. Sorry to the fans of Superstar Saga and my friend Rocketman Olsen, who loves Partners in Time, but Bowser's Inside Story is the best, hands down. But yeah, Spirit Tracks pretty good. There's some bad stuff in there. It's not a great Zelda game really, but to me it's still the best game on DS, which probably is putting down the DS, but you know, whatever. I guess that's what you get for subscribing. Thanks. Nintendo 3DS is the next game. This is the one handheld that I really love. I think it's a great handheld, whereas all the others are not so great. Wow, I can't talk still. Okay, so Link Between Worlds, hands down. I can't talk, my gosh. It is one of my favorite games ever. I love it. It's probably my top 5, top 6, top 7 video games of all time. It's my favorite handheld game for sure, of any handheld game I've ever played. I'm actually replaying it right now, leading up to Link's Awakening on the Switch. I think it's really great. The controls are solid. It's so silky smooth. It's a little bit on the easy side, and it's kind of short. You can pretty much progress and get like, I'm halfway through the game, and I've only played it for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. You can get through it really quickly if you know what you're doing. But it's just such a classic. I also love Mario Kart 7, of course. Super Mario 3D Land's pretty good. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon isn't nearly as good as the original Luigi's Mansion, but you know, it's fun. It's entertaining. It's just not, the atmosphere sucks, and I'm worried Luigi's Mansion 3 will be the same. This video is going up after E3, but it's recorded before E3, so I haven't seen the new trailer, but I'm very afraid. Very afraid. So anyways, that is the handhelds. I'll get to the consoles in just a moment, but first wanted to go over my non-Nintendo consoles. I've never owned an Xbox. I've never owned like anything else, like an Atari or anything, but I have had quite a few PlayStations. I did not own the original PlayStation, PS1, but I owned the PS2, so I played a lot of games with backwards compatibility. My favorite would be from the PlayStation 1, or just PlayStation, would be Spyro Year of the Dragon. It is the Spyro game I grew up on. I love it. I think it's great platforming. It's a great collectathon adventure. A lot of people like Spyro 1 and 2 more, specifically Spyro 2, which is probably my least favorite, but I just tend to like Spyro 3, probably because it's the one I grew up on. I didn't play the other two Spyro games until I was a little bit older. Also, Spider-Man for PS1 is pretty good, but Spyro Year of the Dragon for sure is my #1 PlayStation game, and the remaster, which I'll get to in a moment, is exceptional, so you should definitely get that when it comes out for Switch. For PlayStation 2, not a whole lot I liked on PlayStation 2. I mostly played third-party games, like some Star Wars games, and kind of growing up, I played some stupid games like Polar Express and Finding Nemo, those types of things, Stuart Little. But definitely Star Wars Battlefront 2 off the top of my head is the game I would have to go with. I put so much time into that game. It was such a classic game back then, and it's a lot better in a lot of ways than the current Battlefront games in terms of gameplay, I suppose. Star Wars Episode 3 video game is also fun, but definitely Battlefront 2 would be my favorite PlayStation 2 game, even though it's not an exclusive. It was cross-plat, but still very good. PlayStation 3 I never owned, and never, obviously the PS4 doesn't have really real backwards compatibility to it, but I have played a lot of the great PS3 games as the remasters on PS4, including the Uncharted Trilogy HD and The Last of Us Remastered. So I would say The Last of Us, since I have played the remake of it, the PS3 The Last of Us is my favorite game on the PlayStation 3. I think it's an incredibly phenomenal game. Great story. Cannot wait for the sequel on PS4, which I'm hoping comes out this year. We'll find out eventually. And maybe future people already know, since this is probably coming out a week after I recorded it, after E3 and all that. But yeah, The Last of Us, if you haven't played it and you're into that type of game, that type of story, linear game, you should definitely check it out. Uncharted Trilogy is great too, just not quite as good. And then for PS4, a lot of the games I played on PS4 are PS3 remasters. It's things like The Last of Us, it's the Uncharted Trilogy, and then PlayStation 1 remasters like Spyro. But again, I can't count the remasters and remakes as for the console it's remade on. They're counting towards the original console, and I already included Spyro and The Last of Us, so those are honorable mentions. Also, Spider-Man by Insomniac is pretty good. That's an honorable mention. So really, I have to go with a cross-plat game, and I'm actually going to go with the indie game, The Witness, which I think is such a good puzzle game. It's kind of an open world-ish puzzle game. You explore this island and solve these puzzles. It's one of my favorite video games ever. It's very mysterious, and I really, really love that. So I would go with The Witness. I'm also super excited for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I just saw the gameplay reveal on. I don't think it looks amazing, but it looks pretty good, so I suspect that once that comes out, that'll probably be my favorite game on PS4 that's not like a remake or something. So yeah, that is all of those. Let's dive into the main course, of course, is Nintendo's consoles. I got all the consoles here. Oh yeah, and first, PC. Forgot about PC. My honorable mention, Roller Coaster Tycoon. Oh my god, I've played that game into oblivion growing up and still play it sometimes. But Cuphead would be my favorite game. I originally played on PC that released for PC. Since then, I own it on the Switch, but I'll count that as a PC game because it is my favorite game that I do have for my PC. So I'm not much of a PC gamer though. I pretty much only downloaded Steam to get Cuphead, so yeah, take from that what you will. And let's get started with our console games, of course. I'm so excited. Yeah. Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, Super Mario Bros. 3, hands down, is my favorite game. I love the Super Mario Bros. Trilogy, so the first two are my honorable mentions, but Super Mario Bros. 3 is my favorite game on the NES by far. It's probably my favorite 2D Mario platformer. Yeah, I mean, I go between it and Mario World, but I would say Super Mario Bros. 3, I think, is a little bit better overall, and certainly more inventive than Super Mario World. But for the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World is my favorite game. That one's a little bit tougher to decide on. The honorable mentions are really strong. Link to the Past is one of the best Zelda games, and Donkey Kong Country is great as well, but I gotta barely give the edge to Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. Amazing game. Nintendo 64, wow. Ooh, boy. This is where it gets tough, my friends. The Nintendo 64 and the GameCube are my two favorite game consoles of all time. They're the two I played the most growing up, and that developed me into a proper Nintendo fan. I have to give it to Paper Mario, of course. It is my favorite video game of all time, but Super Mario 64 is also in my top 3 video games of all time, so 2 of my top 3 games are on the same console. Love Mario 64, gotta barely give the edge to Paper Mario, but also, of course, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, all very good. Mario Party 3, very good, my favorite Mario Party, most likely. So Nintendo 64 is just so good, and if you haven't played the original Paper Mario, I highly suggest it. And for GameCube, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door being my favorite game for sure on GameCube, but Mario Sunshine, just like Mario 64, is close behind. Mario Kart Double Dash, probably my favorite multiplayer game ever. That one as well comes highly recommended. Wind Waker, Prime, of course. All good games, but Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, man, that game is just so good. It's so good. And if you want to hear me talk more about Paper Mario in a few weeks, I got a big Paper Mario video coming out, so that'll be exciting. It's like 30 minutes of me just gushing about why it's so good, so definitely check that out. Yeah. So we move on to the Wii now, which is a little bit easier. It's not a lot of Wii games I really like. Really like Donkey Kong Country Returns and, you know, like Wii Sports Resort. I like the Tanks minigame on Wii Play a lot. That's fun. And there's good stuff. Skyward Sword's one of my honorable mentions. It's a lot of people don't like it anymore. I still think it's pretty good, besides the controls. But definitely my top 2 games on Wii, and the only 2 that I think are really masterpieces are Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. If I have to choose, as you can see on the screen, the winner is Mario Galaxy. Super Mario Galaxy, I should say. I think the second game has the better soundtrack and like better level design for the most part. But the first game has the better story, the better cinematics, and I don't know, it's the classic, you know, it was the original, so kind of got to give it to that, even though I think the second one might be a little bit more, like, I don't know, like replayable, I guess, especially since it is streamlined and you can get to the levels faster, so, but yeah, they're both so great, so great. I would love to see both of them remade on one cartridge on the Switch in HD, that'd be cool, but I'd rather have Mario Sunshine, so yeah. Also on the Wii, Super Paper Mario, that's kind of an honorable mention. Unofficially, I guess, since it's not on this screen, but it's okay. It's a good game, not a great game. For the Wii U, I had an extremely hard time deciding. This was the hardest category to decide on, because there's not a lot of games on the Wii U that are like absolute masterpieces in the vein of like Mario Galaxy and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and, you know, Super Mario World and stuff. There's no really one game that stands out for me. But there's a lot of like 9 out of 10 games, and I think the Wii U is really underrated. I feel like there's more, like it has way more games I had to consider than the Wii. The Wii, I was like, okay, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, you know, Skyward Sword, and then besides that, I was like, well, I mean, the Mario Kart and the Smash aren't that good, and the Paper Mario's not that good, sorry, and yeah, I mean, there wasn't much. But on the Wii U, it's like, okay, we got Nintendo Land, an amazing multiplayer game, one of the best ever. Mario Kart 8, one of the best Mario Kart games ever. Rayman Legends, which is phenomenal. It's cross-plat, of course, but, you know, it started on the Wii U, and that's where I played it, and it's an amazing game. Super Mario 3D World is pretty good. I knew it wouldn't win, but it's still an honorable mention. Pikmin 3 is amazing. Like, holy crap. It's so good. So good. And then there's even more stuff that I don't have listed that's, you know, pretty good as well. But in the end, I guess I'm gonna, as the screen says, give it to Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I mean, it's one of my top 10 games, probably around like 5, 6, or 7. It's probably, yeah, I mean, it's my favorite 2D platformer of all time, that and Cuphead. And it's just art. It's just a masterpiece. And that brings me to the Nintendo Switch, which was also kind of tough. In the end, I went with Super Mario Odyssey. Lots of Mario games getting my top points. In fact, every Nintendo home console, a Mario game won, except for the Wii U, Donkey Kong won. And then for the handhelds, no Mario game won. that went exclusively to Zelda with one Metroid game winning. So that's kind of an interesting thing there. But yeah, you know, I love my Mario, guys. So Super Mario Odyssey, barely getting that first place. I have some honorable mentions here. Smash Ultimate, great, obviously. Splatoon 2, Super Mario Maker 2, I'm already putting there because, well, come on, guys, it looks great. Besides, you know, the obvious problems that Nintendo decided to be stupid about. Ugh. Anyway, I put Mario Maker 2 on the Switch category because I would have put Mario Maker 1 on the Wii U, but then I was like, I'll just put it on the Switch because it's going to come out soon. So Mario Maker 2, Smash Ultimate, Splatoon 2, Inside is, wow, one of my favorite games. It's so good. It is an amazing game by Playdead. It's cross-plat, but you can get it on the Switch eShop. Please get that game. It will blow your mind if you like little fun games. Definitely get Inside. So I did choose Mario Odyssey. I think it's got a lot of problems, mostly with the post-game, but it is a great game. If I didn't choose Mario Odyssey, I would have chosen Inside. That's definitely my number 2, but I figured, you know, it's not an exclusive. It's not a Nintendo game. I'll give it to Odyssey, which is the bigger, bolder game, but probably Inside I actually enjoy a little bit more now that I think about it. So, and then you'll notice Breath of the Wild is not an honorable mention, and that is because it sucks. Yep. You heard me. You heard me. Okay. Well, kind of. It doesn't suck. I'm kidding, guys. So, drop your pitchforks and drop your little rabbit bunnies that you're about to put in my house so they poop everywhere on my floor, because it doesn't suck. It's just, I don't like it. I don't know, guys. I can't talk about Breath of the Wild right now because I'll talk about it forever, but basically it's just a big world to run around in, and it's fun, trust me, especially the first time, but it's like, why would I go back and play it more now? I don't think, you know, there's not a whole lot of good music. It's not very, no, it is original. The dungeons aren't good. There's not much music and story, and it feels empty, and I just don't know why people like it so much. I do think it's the worst 3D Zelda game, but it's a good game. It's just not a good Zelda game. If you want to hear me talk more about that, check out me and Rocket Man Olsen's first game fight between Ocarina and Breath of the Wild, which is pretty good. Yeah. So anyways, that is my video. Please, of course, as always, let me know in the comments what are your favorite games for all of your consoles. What consoles do you own? And what games are your favorite on those consoles? Which of mine do you agree with and disagree? And, well, yeah, that's my video. Subscribe, of course, and we only got a month left of the channel, so, I mean, of course, the videos will still be here, but if you want to watch my last video, I appreciate that. In a few weeks, I'm working hard on it right now. And, yeah, that's it. This is unscripted, so I don't really know what else to say. So, subscribe, and see you later. Bye-bye.